Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. I hope you had a nice day by now. First of all, thank you to the organization. It's really well structured, well organized. We had nice talks, nice meetings by today. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be part of this panel discussion, especially because of the topic. I mean, the topic is a topic we all are interested in. It's about 3D modeling, and it's about generative software, it's about generative design, and it's about the main topic, artificial intelligence. And I guess we all had some experience in the last few months or maybe years with artificial intelligence when we talk about, or when we think about ChatGPT-3 or Midjourney as one of the leading programs to create with artificial intelligence some images. And today we want to discuss with, on the one hand, let us say the client's side, what they think about artificial intelligence and 3D modeling in this architectural creative process, and on the other side, with the architects themselves who are using these new softwares and these new approaches to maybe create, in the end, a more valuable architecture to create a better world. This is what we all have in mind. The last 2 days, we heard about sustainability, and I guess 3D modeling, for instance, is one way to strengthen the sustainability in this building process. So let's start with the first, with the first experience of our guests, of the architects. So with Mohammed and Arne, which experience do you have with artificial intelligence related to your own architectural work? Please, Mohammed, you first.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for GBB for the invite and for this interesting topic. First of all, I think just as an architect, we usually try and solve problems that no one thinks or knew they had. So I'll just take a step back. You know, it's I think life has become too easy, so we always have to have these buzzwords and these complicating things. And I mean, the technology has always been part of architecture and design. You know, I'm Gen A, so I started even working before CAD and drawing, and then when CAD came, it sort of revolutionized everything and simplified everything. And a few years ago, it was the metaverse, and I was getting strange questions from people saying, will we end up living in the metaverse? And now with AI, everyone's saying, will we start losing our jobs or things like that? I think technology has always been very, very important in the design process. It's just how we use it and how we apply it to our project or to our design process. So I mean, in specifically artificial intelligence, yes, it's a very useful tool during design, but it does not design. It does not sort of do the work that we need to do. It's very useful in at least what we're using it for in the process of pre-concept to develop the ideas instead of searching millions of images just to convey the idea, almost like the mood images that we require or the ideas to explain something. I think at that stage it is good. At later stages, it is really more sort of generative architecture or coding or programming of the things, which is in a way also artificial intelligence, I guess. So it's really just we need to sort of understand the technology and apply it to the best advantage of the project and our workflow.
Mm. Okay. I know, I agree. We actually committed to designing with the computers in roughly the mid-90s. We were using FormZ and some pretty basic modeling tools back then, but we've kind of always been on the cutting edge of that in terms of just the geometry, and we've always seen these as tools. And so by embracing that, you know, we're actually using AI quite a bit. You know, for example, if we've got some really complex forms or we're designing for competitions and we need to show a layout, for example, for offices or for whatever that is, we'll actually use certain AI generative design programs that will actually do test fits for us. So we can produce 50 test fits for office buildings within a matter of 10 minutes, where it would take us probably a week to do that. If you look at programs like Firefly, for example, or these interpretive like NERF, neural radiance fields, where if we're doing a competition, let's say we just got one done in Monaco, where we needed to create an entire model of Monaco so we could understand what the context was. We used NERF, where we took drone images, and it actually created a 3D model of Monaco for us within a matter of 2 days, where it would have taken somebody probably 2 weeks to do that. So in terms of just utilizing the technology as a tool, as a means to the end, it's not necessarily design exactly, but it's really helping us with these tools to facilitate what we try to do is make a better world and be more optimized and streamlined and really try to utilize the technology for what it is. And I think also, and how we can start applying that to become builders, right? We're designers, but we're also builders. We're not just producing pretty pictures, which AI is really brilliant at. Mid-Journey is amazing. You can put yourself through Mid-Journey and come up with 5 different ideas of what you should look like. But the reality is that we're all here to build. We're all here to actually build real things and actually do real work. So that's ultimately the kind of means to the end of why we use these tools. And I mean, it's an exciting time to be alive right now and to be an architect within this field and even clients and et cetera. It's pretty amazing. And I think the more that we can embrace these tools and harness them and learn how to utilize them on the client side, the engineering and architecture side, and the construction and fabrication side, that ultimately will make us, overall just better at what we do. So it's a very exciting time to be a part of it, and we're trying to be right in the middle of it. So.
Okay. So thank you. And to be honest, or you have to be honest now, did you use Mid-Journey or another program to approach to a client to show and to not waste much more time and to show your project by using this artificial intelligence already?
Yeah.
No, you did.
No, of course. I mean, but I mean, we've always said it. It's not like we come back after a week and say we've done 600 renders. No. It's as I said, it's part of the process of explaining the concept through. But AI, yes. But I mean, the generative architecture, no one's talking about it, but this is a critical part of our work, and this is really a thing that is making our life a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, we are starting to embrace Mid-Journey. We're not doing it necessarily per architecture, but we have a team of people. It's self-referential, so we've produced images from Mid-Journey, but it's all Morphosis based. It's all our own images. So if we want to go a certain path, we'll actually use certain words to describe that. Then we'll also use images that we feed in itself. So in a way, it becomes self-referential. I can't say that it's perfect yet. We're still working on that, but we actually have shown some initial kind of mood images to show what it could be, not necessarily a design, but just an idea or an approach. So something where we're trying to get there. And right now, Mid-Journey is 2-dimensional, but hopefully within the next probably 16 months, it will be 3-dimensional. So Mid-Journey will produce a very seductive, saturated, provocative image that's 2-dimensional, but now they're coming to a point where it'll actually become 3-dimensional. It will turn into a model. So that's a whole new technology that will become even more exciting. And designers, all of us will need to be aware of that and know how to use that and not just rely on something to produce an idea for you. Because you can quickly lose control over that and lose your identity. You can lose control over the entire project. So it's really how do you use these tools smartly for what you want to do.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your insights. Now from the client's perspective. So what do you think about using artificial intelligence in the architectural creative process? What is your experience?
Well, so I mean, at the end of the day, really, it's a tool, right? And I think it's a misnomer to even say it's artificial. When we talk about artificial light, light is light, right? So let's just call it what it is and use it to our advantage. So if an architect is using a tool to develop ideas, to come up with concepts, it's no different to other tools that we've used in the past. So it's why not leverage and take advantage and add value to the service that's being provided. So I think from a client's perspective, what happens, when you've given instruction and you've asked for certain things and it comes back to you, how they got there doesn't really matter at the end of the day, provided that they're meeting your brief and giving you what you want. Now, from my own side, I mean, I've not really, I guess maybe it helps, you know, kind of pull the curtain away so I can see, you can see what's possible, right? So, you know, I've gone in and maybe on the less creative side of things, I've like to a chat GPT and said, well, you know, we're developing a hotel. What sub-consultants are required? How much would those consultants cost? It'll miss one. You'll say, well, shouldn't you have included a spa consultant? Yes, and it corrects, and then, you know, it goes on there, and then what's the fee, the big number? How much is it going to cost? So it gives you some of those parameters and ideas, but at the end of the day, what you put in comes back to you, right? If you put garbage in, you get garbage back. So you have to, you know, even on the creative process, I mean, I think as Arne was saying, you know, if you wanted a Morphosis style image, and you wanted to come up with something, you said, well, I want it to look like a tobacco barn. I want it to have, you know, Richard Serra steel coloring, and I want it to look like a Morphosis project. You're going to put some of these keywords in and get these things back. So at the end of the day, I think it's just it's a really exciting time. It's a really powerful tool. It's not taking away, you know, the job of an architect or a creative designer. It's just adding value to what they can do. So that's how I see it.
Well, I was privileged enough to start working as an architect first with one of the greatest practices in the world, and so I know the inside trade of architects, architectural firms. When I switched to being the client side, I started seeing the enormous work that the consultants are producing to make sure that whatever we ask as clients is actually met. So there's a back end of an army of people working on our requirements. Clients has become more demanding with technology, and I believe utilizing the technology to their end, to the end user at the end, is very important. As a client, I always ensure that the end user, which is the resident for a complex or a resident for hospitality, is actually meeting the requirements that we have put in there, from cultural aspects or from just the comfort of the space. So we are demanding, we like change here, change that. And this army of people, when they start giving me drawings and renders in just one day, you actually sense that there's a bunch of people actually working on that. However, AI is actually now utilizing that technology to produce more imagery for me as a client and making me choose not just from 3 images, but rather than hundreds of images. It is making my life easier. I am becoming more demanding of this, not just me, I mean, all clients are being more demanding. It's just a fact. So when we are asking for more information, more images, and challenging the consultants tend to go to other means of producing images. So AI really helps. I mean, I started testing a few things on AI myself, and it really produced a lot of imagery for me that I was really incapable of imagining even. So I believe that really helped me also convey a message to my consultant, what I want, what I don't want as well. So the consultant became more aware of these quick sketches. Of course, one of the most important things of an architect to be joining a practice is the ability of his sketches. I believe right now the ability of sketches is fading somehow, and the ability of someone utilizing and knowing how to use the AI platform is more important, because that is giving, in like a hand sketch that takes you an hour, in that 1 hour, this AI is producing hundreds of images.
It's a new sketching tool.
It is a new sketching tool, exactly. And that is just really helpful for me as a client to decide which style that I want to go with. And as you mentioned, Morphosis or Dewan, you have one of the greatest architects with you, and you produce a lot of great images, and everyone has its own style. So when you utilize your own AI, So it's like a bot. It's like a personal assistant. You teach him. It's, as they say, intelligent. It's actually what you ask him to, or ask it to do for you.
It's a she, by the way.
Yeah, probably, exactly. So it's a very interesting topic. It's amazing how the shift is going, but there are a few, I don't want to go there, but there are a few challenges with AI recently. We hear articles, we read articles, we hear stories in the news, how AI and Terminator, the movie is a big anticipation of that. But
Let's talk about the challenges. You said there are a lot of challenges. So what do you mean in detail, talking about challenges using artificial intelligence?
of course, as a client, of course, I have a bigger client, and which is maybe a board of directors, or I have so basically CEO, or it is always a bigger client there. One of the challenges is maybe when just like BIM when BIM first came out, everybody was afraid that BIM will take people's jobs. But unfortunately, it didn't, which is great. It's not unfortunate, it's actually fortunate, because it created more jobs for people to actually go and explore BIM, and there is a BIM manager, there's a BIM coordinator, there's a lot of other jobs that has been created. So I believe AI can also open more jobs for other people. Just like how agriculture moved from having many farmers, now it's only one, automated. One guy actually farms everything. So there's always an evolution that is happening. But the challenge is where you become more reliant on this AI. I go to X architect or something, and I ask of him to do a sketch for me. And he produces everything in AI. He's like, here you go, take it. But that's not what I want. So its misuse of the tool is a big challenge. Is how to educate people also. A youngster just graduated from architectural school, and he believes he is the best architect there is because he has the tool of an AI. But that's not how it works.
Sounds like every young architect.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So this is one of the challenges that I fear that it will create more of like a bubble, like a halo, like it can explode anytime, and it will not serve us the right way. And you will find scammers. This is one of the things, it's a powerful tool, but if you misuse it, it will backfire on you.
Well, the challenge is time. I think actually what you're talking about, it can become an incredibly unhealthy relationship between what a client expects and what we can do. And if the expectation is to produce 50 sketches and images, and you're producing some very topical imagery, and somebody falls in love with that, the reality is that there's not as much intelligence built into that. If the end result is to build that, then you can get caught up in this whole world of provocative, sexy imagery that is very compelling, that is impossible to build, and you literally have to spend thousands of hours just trying to figure out how to make it work. So I think the idea of speed and expectations are probably setting up some of the biggest challenges with this type of software between clients, engineers, architects, and that's not even getting to the fact of when we build it, because one of our industry is probably one of the most arcane in terms of we can design a lot of things, but the reality is it becomes real. It's real. Like we have to build out of these types of materials. So even though we've got the technology to design in really incredible ways, it still comes down to somebody putting the lights in, producing that curved piece of wood, painting it, getting in between something. So that's the disconnect, and that's where the designs and engineering side is potentially moving away from the construction and fabrication side. And that's, to me, I think that's one of the fundamental challenges. And there needs to be more people from that client, architect, engineering, and contractor side that all come together and understand that we all need to be in this as one. It's not just us telling you what to do. Like we actually regularly engage fabricators and people within the industry to say, here's what we're doing. We're designing a double curving piece of glass or wood. Can you build that? If you can't build it, then we're gonna change our design. And so there's this kind of healthy feedback loop that needs to happen between client design and vision and fabrication and construction that I think, I don't know about you, but to me that kind of becomes the challenge for us. We need to show you something that you get excited about, but then how can we build it and make it cost effective and get it built on time and make it something that we can all sit in and enjoy.
And I don't know that that's a new challenge. I think that's always been there, right? I think even 10, 15 years ago, you heard about all these projects being won in the UAE that were done by, I mean, they were won by a renderer, right? I mean, maybe that renderer was actually an architect, maybe they weren't, right? And I even recently heard now whether it's an urban legend or not, a competition that was won in Saudi, actually, that was won by a group of I guess you'd call them designers who came up, used AI to come up with images, won this competition, found out they weren't architects, had to team up with an architecture company to deliver it, and then couldn't, because couldn't be built, they couldn't be designed. So you didn't have the right intelligence going in from the start, so what came out was actually not buildable, or not buildable the way it was imagined to be. And we saw that a lot in the renderings in those early competitions, 10, 15 years ago. So I think in the end, it's interesting because as we were talking about this process, I was even thinking back how oftentimes, we on the client side, we were working on a project where we would work directly with the renderer, and the architect actually was outside of that process, and we would work with them to create the vision, and actually they drove a lot of that vision. So you can imagine an AI would be doing that same job that the renderer was doing for us, and then we're going back to the architect and said, here it is, this is what we want. And each time they went away from that, we'd pull it back up and say, that's what we want, figure out how to make it happen. So at the end of the day, I mean, there is there's always going to be that challenge between, coming up with a vision, coming up with the idea, and then building it, right? And I think that challenge is probably timeless. Doesn't matter what tool we're using.
I think a big challenge as well is managing the expectations of the client after this. It's already clients asking for, not you guys, other clients.
Not us, yeah, right.
They're asking like renders at almost a pre-concept or concept, and I mean, it's not possible, and going into details about renders which are not valid. So I think I never use renders for my design process. I don't need a render. I don't need AI to. It's just to explain something better than in words. I mean, we're talking about 3D printing of models and things like that. I mean, this is probably the most important tool we have, and this is the biggest jump, but it's not as sexy as AI, so no one talks about it. We printing and then playing around and scanning, and this is the process that I need. Whereas if the client wants a full render after 2 weeks because someone else has showed them 30 AI images, this is the problem, because at the end of the day, design, if I have 4 weeks instead of 2 weeks, it will be better. Absolutely no doubt about that. So the more time that we have to explore, the better it is as design. The challenge is for me is like, give me 4 weeks. Don't
time, as Arne said, but we don't have time.
Right.
We want things yesterday.
We'll run afterwards. Give me a bit more in concept, and I'll recover it in the end.
We want things yesterday.
That's the problem. You get that one guy who does do it in that time. Now that becomes the expectation.
Correct.
Yeah.
Always.
That's right. But the end result will not be the same. You really need to develop the design in a way that you can solve the issues at the end. I mean, you're saying that the problems of sites. I mean, it's not just curved glass. We have a problem getting a straight plastered wall. So.
Right. Well, it puts the onus on the client in a way to understand that the speed and the expectations. What are you getting? And then looking a little bit deeper into, you and I were talking, what kind of experience do they have? Have they built anything? And then how, like, if it's somebody who's fresh and new, just right out of school, producing something very provocative, do they even have the experience to be able to build that? Versus, is there somebody who has more experience and they're more established? So it's an interesting challenge. I mean, look, this is the nature of our industry. That's the reality of it. There's always that architect who will go there and produce an image quicker and faster, and he'll sell it better, and they'll be selected. So it's like, we have to be on our game as well. I mean, I agree with you 100%, but it's like now, because we're in so many competitions worldwide, and especially in the Middle East, where there is so much importance put on an image that you have to think differently. So it's harnessing this technology. It's just what we have to do.
But it's the same when a lot of the architects stopped drawing by hand because it was so easy to draw by CAD. Yeah. And I feel that this is the problem. This would limit a bit the creativity. It's really very easy to do an image. Yeah. Very easy to do an image without substance, and it looks very good and looks, but there's a process that you have to follow to get to that image.
It's so hard. I remember in school, they always told us, start sketching with your hands. But then CAD was much easier to do. So myself, actually, I was more of a sketching guy. So the CAD was not always an option. But I saw many of my friends, my colleagues, they start immediately an idea in CAD. But that's not an idea. It's always that human factor that AI misses. It's always about the culture, the understanding of human interaction with space, the psychology of the spaces. It's always important to know that aspect. So if an AI generates a pretty building, doesn't mean that I have to take that pretty building. It's always that human interaction. Architects are very creative in creating a habitable space. My passion is actually to enrich the quality of life by creating good cultural designs, amazing cultural designs. And that's how I really got into the cultural design expertise. I had this great project, an opera house in Jeddah, and it was that architectural motifs and elements in each corner of the design that really felt it is speaking to you. It's a masterpiece, really, and the architect did a wonderful job, but I would never imagine that an AI can create something like that. It's that thinking behind a column. Why is it placed there? Why is it shaped that way? The AI will never understand or provide a detailed information why is that built that way. Mm. And I speak also to Morphosis style. Tom Main does things his own way, and if you give it or teach it to an AI, he wouldn't give what Tom Main would give. No. It's that thinking behind the experience, the collective experiences built throughout the years to make him actually produce something that is legible, that is viable, and it intrigues the client. So yeah, that's what I think. There is a great movie with Johnny Depp. It's called Transcendence. I always link things with movies because that's how we look at things in our own picture and window. And that movie actually, he transcends his thinking and his soul into the computer world. Mm-hmm. And he uses nanotechnology, he uses the intelligence of the computer to make money, profit, and rebuild his own flesh into a real person, which is really scary if you look into how AI may function. But it really caught my attention when you said about glass and things, because he really built glass in that movie. He built solar panels, all using robots. It is just a scary movie, but in a way that it opens a lot of, it opens your eyes to something very interesting, how AI or the world may go to.
Yeah, agreed.
So, how would you encourage architects? What would you say when architects talk to you and say, we want to approach for this project and all that stuff? How would you encourage them to use artificial intelligence? Or do you see additional risks and which additional chances to use it?
It's a good question. I think somebody said it yesterday, right? Pulling on a 90s thing, just do it. I mean, I wouldn't discourage or encourage them to use a tool. I mean, I think, I think it's ultimately, they won't be able to not use AI in some form or another at some point, right? I think it's just going to become an integral part of the way we do things. And if you're not doing it, then you're just not doing it as fast and as efficiently as the next guy. So, I mean, I think, it has to be, we have to be careful, I suppose, how we use it, when we use it. It's at the end of the day, you don't want to promise something that you can't deliver. I think you said, I mean, when you're selling an image, if you can't deliver that image, then that becomes a real problem, right? And that, probably has nothing to do with AI, but it's very easy to make a mistake and not control it or not correct it, and then present that, and then the next time you come back, and all of a sudden that 50-meter cantilever you promised isn't there anymore, and you've stuck a column in the middle of it. And they're going to say, well, what's that column doing? I wanted that 50-meter, So, I think it's just, being careful about how you use it, but at the end of the day, I would just say, go for it.
but I think really it's sorry, can I?
Please.
I think it's really, I mean, artificial intelligence is quite stupid, by the way. So, I mean...
I agree.
Yeah. So really, first of all, we have to understand how it works or how it thinks. Yeah. I was playing around with a program, I can't remember the name now, but basically you sketch something in shape and you put it in and it gives you images based on that. But the same thing, you can ask it for that image to be a furniture, to be a building, or to be an interior, which is really strange. So you start testing things just to understand how they interpret your commands, let's say. And this is, I think, the very important thing that we need to do to use it. Currently, what we're using it is, I haven't arrived to the point where it will show me how a building I'm thinking about, but definitely features of the building. For example, if a very important thing is you're in a room looking at a window through a valley and the sea in the background, things like that, almost the ambience or the use of the space, or a detail, an architectural detail, or a fixing, or a connection between materials, or things like that. This is very good, and that's why I think it's very useful at pre-concept at very early stages, because it shows these things. But the quicker we understand how stupid it is, the better it is to use afterwards. So.
Agree.
Can I call it stupid artificial intelligence?
Yeah,
without stupid intelligence.
Stupid intelligence.
Stupid intelligence, yeah. So let's go one step further, and we now talked about the real life, but there is a second life in a way. It's called the metaverse, and in October there will be the first metaverse architecture biennale. For me, it sounds really crazy that people will spend a lot of time. So my daughters, they might spend a lot of time in this crazy metaverse thing. What do you think? There are architects now creating spaces in the metaverse. What do you think about this?
I mean, we actually have a metaverse and architectural department within the company. We have our own office on the metaverse, but for me, it's useless, really. The nice thing that
Yes, I agree.
For me, the most interesting part of the metaverse is basically the reach that you have to people. So this is the good thing. You know, it's from design. I think it's very nice to have a forum where anyone related to design, manufacturer, architect, client, anyone that's interested in that, a space to be together, to put something and get comments and receive that. That's all it is for me. Anything past that, I think it's just, you know, once you try and monetize on something and try and get profit, it just loses it. It just loses it. And the limitation of the triangles that you can use because you need to give it value. Metaverse was the biggest thing 2 years ago. Now it's almost disappeared. You know, it's useless. Sorry.
No, don't be.
I actually don't think that architects should be designing the metaverse. I think that we constrain ourselves too much. Everything that I've seen in the metaverse, I think, is incredibly boring and banal. And I think it's people trying to create ideas that they couldn't create in the real world. So I haven't found any of it compelling, not to say that it couldn't be there, but I think that what I've seen from architects, some very talented architects doing it, I think it's completely falling short because we as architects, we're really, if you give us a blank slate, we're not quite as good with that. You give us parameters and constraints, we're very good at problem solving creatively. If you give somebody the metaverse and there's no gravity, there's no seasons, there's no real world scenarios to deal with, I think it actually takes somebody else in a different field to do that, whether that's in film and industry or whatever, but I just think that architects, we generally constrain ourselves too much. So we haven't delved into the metaverse yet, but everything that I've seen just isn't quite there yet, and I think there needs to be a paradigm shift as to who designs the metaverse and what are the kind of fundamental ideas behind that. Like if it's something where you can create an entire world of whatever you can imagine, then why have 4 walls and a roof and a ceiling and a floor? We can do that here. It's not that interesting. Like if it's something where you can completely reimagine, then to me it needs somebody else, something somewhere who can completely rethink what that whole world and universe can be. And I'm not quite sure what that is yet.
Life is just beautiful, really. Why would you put yourself into a fake world where really, I agree totally with you, an architectural masterpiece is as good as its own design brief. So the better the design brief is, the better the architect gave you as an end product. Of course, the mastermind behind the masterpiece is the architect. However, a good design brief gives you these parameters and constraints for an architect to be challenged. And I had an amazing consultant, one of the world-leading consultants, really. I took a vacation at some point for about a month. And the design went through because there wasn't a person in the team challenging the architect because they were a bit too afraid to tell the consultant because he was very prestigious and grand. You know, there is this, sometimes clients get afraid to give the comment to a big star architect. So they weren't challenging him, and the architect literally called me and said, Alaaddin, nobody is challenging me. I feel bored, literally. So I immediately cut my vacation, came back, and I saw the mess. Because everything that he was presenting, they said, okay, good. Because they were too intimidated to speak to the architect and tell him what to do. But that's not how the world works. You have to challenge the architect always. And if you give the metaverse an open canvas for everybody to be creative, I mean, I see my nieces and nephews go into this metaverse. It's not a metaverse, it's something called Minecraft.
Called Minecraft.
Yeah, I don't know it. I just see them what they do in it. And it's not creative at all. They just break things and build things. And
My daughters would say you are not telling the truth. They spend hours in Minecraft being creative in a way. I can tell you. Really, crazy.
So I'm just going to end my brief moment with just saying that life is beautiful and people should enjoy the outdoors, the trees, the wind touching their face. It's just too beautiful to be wasted on computer. Really, this is my own thing, yes, and I really believe in it.
What is about making experiences in a way of accessible for everybody? Because I know that a famous museum in Liechtenstein now is creating a twin in the metaverse, and then with this, for instance, Apple Vision or something comparable, similar, you are able to go to this museum. Instead of going really there, you can have this experience without traveling. Isn't this a kind of advantage we can focus on in future to make things accessible for everybody by the metaverse? Sherif?
I don't know, the metaverse is like a big nightmare for me. It's like way too sci-fi. You can imagine that the only time it's useful is, if you're, the only thing that's left of you is your mind, and you've been plugged into a hive, and you can somehow now enter the metaverse and live this life and do these things that, you wouldn't otherwise be able to do anymore. I feel like I've seen that movie already. And, I just don't get it. I have never been able to wrap my head around it. I've tried to, sort of said, well, how is this useful to me? How can we take advantage of this? They're selling plots, there's real estate development happening in the metaverse. I'm like, really? How? Speaking to Minecraft, I've watched my kids build beautiful worlds, right, using this tool, and then, as you said, destroy it and whatever. But it's, again, at the end of the day, if it's a tool that people can use to test ideas and to do things, great. But unless it's sort of transferable into a tangible, thing that we can touch, feel, and experience, breathe, move through, in all dimensions, time, space, then what's the point really? I
will say briefly on top of that, and agree with everything you're saying. And if you actually talk about the idea of accessibility in terms of disabled, not being able to access something, we've actually been in communication with several people about producing 3D models of younger people, underprivileged people, people who just physically can't access certain spaces. Where we have a book that we produced. It's 100 buildings that every architect should know. So we took all the way from Zaha Hadid's office to Frank Gehry and everyone in between of what are the 100 buildings in the world that you should know. And now we're working with somebody, it's more of an accessibility consultant, to actually design and 3D model these to give young students who don't have the money or the time to be able to travel somewhere to say, you should know Ronchamp, right? You should be able to go to the Sydney Opera House. And so I think from an accessibility standpoint, it's interesting. I think from taking the place of real world, no, it can never do that. But the whole notion of accessibility within our profession, I think, is incredibly important. So I think there's an interesting conversation to be had with how these tools can be used to give certain people access that would normally never have the ability to do that. So I think that's kind of an interesting kind of tangent to what we're talking about.
Beautiful.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's beautiful. No, go ahead. But it's beautiful. I just wanted to say it's beautiful.
Yeah.
What you're doing, this is for the people.
Yeah.
This is where it really becomes interesting and intriguing. Sorry, just go ahead.
No, but I think, you said the digital twin. I think this part of the metaverse is the same. We're talking about AI and generative architecture. There's always a tool that you can use from these things. And I think one of the good things that came out of the metaverse is the digital twins. And the way where you could test simulations. I think Birmingham as a city, it's got everything, sort of a proper digital twin. And you can run scenarios like if there's a drought, a very dry summer, what can we do? Where do we need to store water? Where do we, all of a sudden, a pipe burst or something like that? I think this is very easy to simulate in a digital twin in the metaverse. Just as we were saying before, for me, generative architecture is the only proper use of AI at the moment. So there's always, software is you have to understand it, the system, you need to understand it and see the best way that it could serve its purpose.
Just like autopilot, would you give your life in an airplane to an autopilot to take off all the way to the route and land? Would you do that?
It's probably happened. And
Or a Tesla.
Or a Tesla?
I guess this is a topic we can discuss next time. This is a topic we can discuss next
It's
time.
very interesting. I wouldn't just throw my life into the unknown, really. I like to be in control. That's what I am.
So the conclusion is, as long as we have the control and as long as we use all this technology as a tool, it will be an advantage for the society and for our daily life, as long as it will not take over our daily life.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your experiences. Thank you very much for sharing this with the audience here and with me. I'm really looking forward to have the next talk in the next series. And then a big applause for the panel gap. Thanks.
Thanks.